The phone rang at 11:47 p.m., cutting through the silence like a knife through butter. I knew it was Jenna before I even looked at the caller ID. My wife had a talent for timing her lies perfectly. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Hey babe, her voice came through the speaker, sweet as artificial honey. I'm going to stay at Tara's tonight. She's having another one of her episodes, you know how she gets. I sat in my recliner, remote in one hand, beer growing warm in the other. The late-night talk show host was making jokes about politicians, but nothing seemed funny anymore. Not when your wife thinks you're stupid enough to believe her sister needs help every Tuesday and Thursday night. Which episode is this? I asked, keeping my voice level. The anxiety one or the depression one? Don't be such a jerk, Mike. She really needs me right now. Her job is stressing her out, and you know how fragile she's been since the divorce. Fragile. Right. Tara was about as fragile as a sledgehammer. She worked construction management, could drink most men under the table, and hadn't shown a vulnerable moment since we'd known her. But Jenna needed her story to work, so Tara had to be the damsel in distress. Tell her I said hi, I replied, taking a long sip of beer, and that if she needs anything heavy moved or any technical help, I'm just a phone call away. There was a pause, a telling pause. She doesn't need that kind of help, Mike. She needs emotional support. Girl talk. You wouldn't understand. Right. Girl talk. At midnight. It's not midnight yet. Close enough? I glanced at the clock again. 11:49 p.m. Drive safe. Love you. Love you too. The line went dead, and I stared at the phone for a long moment. 3 months of this. 3 months of sudden sister emergencies that always happened late at night. 3 months of Jenna coming home the next morning with stories that didn't quite add up and excuses that felt rehearsed. I'm not a detective, but I work in home security systems. My job is literally to think about how people break into places they shouldn't be, how they bypass alarms, disable cameras, and cover their tracks. You spend enough time thinking about deception professionally, and you start recognizing it personally. The thing is, I'd been giving Jenna the benefit of the doubt. Marriage is built on trust, right? You don't start investigating your wife just because she's been acting strange. You don't install tracking software on her phone or follow her car just because her stories don't line up perfectly. But you also don't ignore obvious lies forever. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Tara's number. My thumb hovered over the call button for a full minute. This was it. The moment where I either confirmed my suspicions or discovered I was a paranoid husband who needed therapy. The phone rang twice before Tara picked up. Mike, what's wrong? Is Jenna okay? Her voice was clear, alert. Not the voice of someone having an emotional breakdown. Not the voice of someone who'd been crying on her sister's shoulder for the past 3 hours. She's fine, I said slowly. She's with you, right? Helping you through your episode? Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. My episode? Tara's voice had changed, sharper now, suspicious. Mike, what are you talking about? I haven't seen Jenna since Sunday dinner last week. My beer slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. The can rolled under the coffee table, leaving a trail of foam on the carpet. But I barely noticed. The world had just shifted under my feet. She said she was coming over to help you, said you were having anxiety problems and needed emotional support. Mike? Tara's voice was gentle now, the way you talk to someone who's just been punched in the gut. I'm at home, alone, watching Netflix and eating ice cream. I haven't had anxiety problems since college, and I certainly haven't called Jenna for help. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. The laugh track from the TV seemed to mock me from across the room. Where do you think she is? Tara asked quietly. I knew where she was, had known for weeks, really. The signs were all there. The new clothes, she claimed, were gifts from friends. The way she'd started going to the gym every day, coming home with perfectly styled hair that didn't look like she'd been working out. The phone calls she took in the other room, speaking in hushed tones about work stuff and client emergencies. Rick Brennan's house, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The neighbor? Yeah, the neighbor. Rick lived 3 houses down in a sprawling colonial that probably cost twice what mine did. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, athletic, successful in that flashy way that attracted attention. He drove a red Mustang convertible and wore expensive suits to his job selling commercial real estate. The kind of guy who threw backyard parties that went until 2 a.m. and somehow never got noise complaints. The kind of guy who smiled and waved when he saw me working in my yard, calling out friendly greetings like we were best buddies. the kind of guy who complimented Jenna on her dress at neighborhood barbecues while his own wife, Linda, watched with tight lips and knowing eyes. "I'm sorry, Mike," Tara said. "I'm really sorry." "Not your fault." I bent down and picked up the beer can, shaking the last few drops onto the carpet. "Thanks for being honest. What are you going to do?" "Good question. What do you do when you discover your wife has been lying to you for 3 months, when you realize that every Tuesday and Thursday night she's been in another man's bed while you sat at home like an idiot, actually worried about her sister's mental health?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'll figure something out." After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. The TV kept playing, but I'd lost track of what was on. My mind was racing, jumping between anger and hurt and something that felt dangerously close to relief. At least now I knew. The uncertainty was over. I thought about driving to Rick's house, thought about pounding on his door and demanding to see my wife, thought about the scene that would create, the neighbors watching from their windows, the drama that would follow. But that's not who I am. I'm not the type to make scenes or throw punches or scream in the street. I'm a planner, a problem solver. When someone breaks into a house, they don't just smash through the front door. They study the target, they learn the patterns, they wait for the right moment, and then they strike where it hurts most. I picked up my phone and started making notes. Times, dates, patterns. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Every lie, every excuse, every sister emergency that had never actually happened. Rick Brennan had no idea what was coming for him. Neither did Jenna. But they were about to learn that underestimating the quiet guy with the security expertise was a very expensive mistake. Wednesday morning came with the kind of gray drizzle that makes everything look depressing. I was already at my kitchen table with coffee and a legal pad when Jenna walked through the front door at 7:15 a.m. She looked perfect, as always. Hairstyled, makeup fresh, wearing the blue dress I'd complimented her on last month. Not the appearance of someone who'd spent the night comforting a distraught sister. "Morning, babe," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "Sorry I'm so early. Tara felt better and didn't need me to stay for breakfast." I looked up from my notes, studying her face. She met my eyes without flinching. 3 months of practice had made her a better liar. "How is she doing?" I asked. "Better?" "Much better. She just needed someone to listen, you know? Sometimes talking through your problems is all it takes." "That's good." I was worried about her. Jenna smiled and kissed the top of my head. "You're sweet, but she's fine now. Stronger than she looks." After she went upstairs to shower, I added another line to my notes. Claims Tara felt better and didn't need breakfast company. Arrived home 7:15 a.m. with fresh makeup and styled hair. The evidence was piling up, but evidence wasn't enough. I needed leverage, and for leverage, I needed allies. I called in sick to work and spent the morning driving around the neighborhood. Not stalking, just observing, learning patterns the way I'd learned to analyze security vulnerabilities. Rick's red Mustang was in his driveway, Linda's silver Honda was gone, she worked at the bank downtown and left every morning at 8:30. Their house had a clear view of the street from the front windows, but the backyard was private, surrounded by tall hedges. At 10:47 a.m., I parked across the street and waited. At 11:23 a.m., Jenna's white Lexus pulled into Rick's driveway. She didn't park on the street like a normal visitor. She pulled right up to the garage, partially hidden from view, the move of someone who didn't want to be seen. I took photos with my phone. Not for court. Michigan is a no-fault divorce state, so adultery doesn't matter legally. But for later. For when I needed to prove points to people who mattered. Jenna stayed for 2 hours. When she left, her hair was messier and her lipstick was gone. More photos. That afternoon, I drove to Linda Brennan's bank. I'd met her a few times at neighborhood events. She was sharp, observant, and had the look of someone who'd been suspicious of her husband for a while. "Mike?" She looked surprised when I approached her desk. "What brings you here? Need a loan?" "Actually, I was hoping to talk to you. Privately, maybe after work?" Her expression shifted, the polite confusion replaced by something more knowing. "About what?" "About our spouses." Linda was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming on her desk. Around us, the bank hummed with quiet activity. Customers in line, tellers counting money, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. "Murphy's Tavern," she said finally. 6 o'clock. Murphy's was the kind of bar where people went to have serious conversations. Dark wood, dim lighting, booths that provided privacy. Linda was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a glass of wine that looked like it wasn't her first. "So," she said as I sat down, "how long have you known?" "Officially, since last night." "Unofficially?" I've been suspicious for months. She nodded. I've known since it started. Rick's not as clever as he thinks he is. New cologne, working late on days when he doesn't have appointments, mysterious phone calls. She took a sip of wine. Plus, your wife isn't exactly subtle. She drives right into our driveway like she owns the place. You've seen her? Multiple times. Tuesdays and Thursdays, like clockwork. Sometimes she stays for hours. I ordered a beer and leaned back in the booth. Why haven't you confronted them? Linda's laugh was bitter. What's the point? Rick would deny it, Jenna would disappear for a while, and then they'd just get better at hiding it. I'd rather know what's happening than drive myself crazy wondering. So what's your plan? Divorce. I've been documenting everything for months. Photos, credit card statements, phone records. My lawyer says I'll get the house and half his business. Smart woman, but I wasn't interested in divorce settlements. What if I told you there was another way? I said. Something that would hurt them more than lawyers and paperwork? Linda's eyes sharpened. I'm listening. I spent the next hour laying out my plan. It was complex, requiring precise timing and coordination. Most importantly, it was completely legal. No violence, no property damage, no criminal activity. Just public humiliation served at exactly the right temperature. That's diabolical, Linda said when I finished. That's the point. When do we start? Tomorrow night. Thursday. When they think they're safe in their little routine? Linda raised her wine glass. To making them pay. I clinked my beer against her glass. To making them pay. The next evening, I sat in my living room and waited for Jenna's call. It came at 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes later than usual. Hey babe, I'm heading to Tara's again. She had another rough day at work and really needs someone to talk to. Poor Tara, I said. She's been having a lot of problems lately. I know, I feel terrible for her. But that's what sisters are for, right? Right. Hey, do you think she'd like some company tomorrow? I could stop by after work, maybe bring dinner. Another pause. Longer this time. She's pretty fragile right now, Mike. I think she needs space from men in general. You understand? Of course. Tell her I'm thinking about her. I will. Love you. Love you too. As soon as she hung up, I texted Linda. Phase 1 complete. She's on her way. Linda's response came back immediately. Ready and waiting. At 12:15 a.m., Linda's Honda pulled into her own driveway. She'd been parked around the corner, waiting for my signal. Now came the tricky part. At 12:20 a.m., Linda knocked on Rick's front door. I couldn't hear the conversation from my house, but I could see the porch light and the shadows moving behind the frosted glass. Linda had her story ready. She'd forgotten her house key and needed Rick to call a locksmith. Except Rick couldn't answer the door, because Rick was upstairs with my wife, and answering would expose them both. Linda knocked again. Louder this time. Long enough for lights to come on in neighboring houses. Long enough for people to look out their windows and see Linda Brennan locked out of her own house while her husband ignored her pleas for help. At 12:35 a.m., Linda called the police. I think something might be wrong, she told the dispatcher, loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear. My husband isn't answering the door, and his car is in the driveway. I'm worried he might be hurt. 2 patrol cars arrived at 12:47 a.m. By then, half the neighborhood was awake and watching from their windows or front yards. Nothing like a police response to draw an audience. The officers knocked on Rick's door. When he didn't answer, they knocked louder. When he still didn't answer, they started discussing the possibility of a wellness check. That's when Rick finally appeared, wearing a bathrobe and looking panicked. Officers, I'm fine. Just fell asleep watching TV. Didn't hear the door. Your wife has been knocking for 20 minutes, one of the officers said. She was worried about you. I'm a heavy sleeper. Linda played her part perfectly. Honey, I forgot my key. Why didn't you answer? I was so scared something had happened to you. Rick's eyes darted to the upstairs windows, then back to the officers. Sorry, sweetheart. Like I said, I was asleep. The officers left, but the neighbors didn't. They lingered in their yards, whispering among themselves. Mrs. Patterson from next door approached Linda with obvious concern. The Johnsons from across the street offered to let her stay at their house if she felt unsafe. All while Rick stood in his doorway, trapped. He couldn't go back inside without looking suspicious. He couldn't explain why he'd ignored 20 minutes of knocking. And he definitely couldn't explain why Jenna's white Lexus was parked behind his house, hidden from street view but visible to anyone walking around the building. Which Mrs. Patterson did at exactly 1:15 a.m. when she offered to check Rick's backyard for signs of a break-in. Whose car is that? She called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Game over. I watched from my living room window as Jenna emerged from Rick's back door, fully dressed but disheveled. She tried to walk casually to her car, as if she'd just stopped by for a late-night chat. But the damage was done. 20 neighbors had now seen Jenna Grady leaving Rick Brennan's house at 1:20 a.m. while Rick's wife had been locked outside, begging for help. By morning, the whole neighborhood would know. By the end of the week, everyone in town would know, and that was just the beginning. Friday morning brought consequences. I was drinking coffee and reading the news when my phone started buzzing with text messages. "Mike, I heard about last night. Are you okay?" Sarah from 2 streets over. "Call me when you get a chance. We need to talk." Jim Patterson, whose wife had discovered Jenna's car. "I'm so sorry. If you need anything, let me know." Beth Johnson from across the street. The neighborhood gossip network had kicked into high gear. By 8 a.m., I'd received 12 messages from people who'd either witnessed the scene or heard about it secondhand. The story was spreading like wildfire. Jenna came downstairs at 8:30, fully dressed for work and acting like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe," she said, grabbing her travel mug from the counter. "Running late today. Big client meeting." I looked up from my phone. "How's Tara doing this morning?" "Much better. She got some good sleep and feels ready to face the day." "That's wonderful. I'm sure the whole neighborhood is relieved to hear she's okay." Something in my tone made her pause. She turned to look at me, coffee mug halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Just that people care about Tara. They worry when she's struggling." Jenna stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for hidden meaning, but I kept my expression neutral, friendly even. "Right," she said finally. "Well, I should go. Don't want to keep the client waiting." After she left, I called Tara. "She's going to figure out that you know," Tara said after I explained the previous night's events. "What happens then?" "Then we move to phase 2. "Which is?" "The direct approach." I spent Friday collecting intelligence. Linda texted me updates throughout the day. Rick was distracted at work, taking personal calls and leaving early. He'd tried to convince her that Jenna had just stopped by because she was worried about the noise and wanted to make sure everything was okay. "He actually said that with a straight face," Linda wrote. "Like I'm stupid enough to believe someone checks on noise complaints at midnight wearing a cocktail dress." By Friday evening, I was ready for the confrontation. Jenna came home at her usual time, but she was tense. The neighborhood whispers had reached her ears. "People are talking," she said as soon as she walked in the door. Mrs. Patterson made some snide comment about late-night emergencies when I got the mail today. "What kind of comment?" "Just, you know how she is. Always gossiping about everyone." I nodded sympathetically. "What did she say exactly?" Jenna hesitated. She asked if Tara was feeling better after her crisis last night. But the way she said it, like she didn't believe Tara was really having problems. Why wouldn't she believe that? I don't know, Mike. Maybe because small-town people love drama and rumors. I set down my newspaper and looked at her directly. Maybe she doesn't believe it because Tara wasn't having a crisis last night. The color drained from Jenna's face. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I called Tara Wednesday night while you were supposedly comforting her. She was at home, alone, watching Netflix. She hadn't seen you since Sunday dinner." Jenna's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it. Then her shoulders sagged. "Mike, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've gotten very good at explaining things that aren't true." She sat down on the couch, her hands shaking slightly. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been sleeping with Rick Brennan every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months while telling me you were helping your sister through emotional crises that didn't exist. Is that not what's been happening?" It happened. We didn't plan it." "You didn't plan to lie to me for 3 months? You didn't plan to sneak around behind my back? You didn't plan to make me worry about Tara's mental health while you were screwing the neighbor?" Jenna started crying. "I never meant for it to go this far. It was supposed to be just once. Just something that happened, but then it kept happening, and I didn't know how to stop." "Here's how you stop. You don't go to his house. It's really that simple." "You don't understand. He makes me feel alive, excited, like I'm young again. And I make you feel what? Dead? Comfortable, safe, predictable." She looked up at me through her tears. "Mike, we've been married for 8 years. When's the last time you surprised me? When's the last time we did anything spontaneous or exciting?" I stared at her. "So this is my fault?" "No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we've gotten into a rut, and Rick reminded me what it felt like to feel passionate about someone." "Passionate enough to humiliate me in front of the entire neighborhood?" That wasn't supposed to happen. Last night was... It was a disaster. Linda showing up like that, the police, everyone watching. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. How did Linda even know? I could have told her the truth. Could have explained how Linda and I had orchestrated the whole thing, but that would have been giving away my advantage. Maybe she got suspicious for the same reasons I did. Maybe Rick isn't as clever as he thinks he is. Jenna nodded miserably. He panicked. Completely fell apart when the police showed up. I had to hide upstairs for over an hour. Poor you. Mike, please. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But can we try to work through this? Can we go to counseling or something? I looked at my wife. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 8 years ago, who'd promised to love and honor me, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my bank account, who'd thrown it all away for the excitement of sneaking around with a man who drove a flashy car and told her she was beautiful. No, I said quietly. We can't work through this. Mike, please. You made your choice, Jenna. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months, you chose Rick over me. You chose lying over honesty. You chose excitement over commitment. I stood up from my chair. Now you get to live with those choices. What does that mean? It means I'm done. It means you can pack your things and go stay with Rick or Tara or whoever will take you in. But you can't stay here. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. The deed is in my name only. We bought it before we got married, remember? You insisted on keeping your finances separate. Jenna's face went white. In her quest for independence and modern marriage dynamics, she'd protected herself right out of a home. You can't just throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. I'm asking you to leave. There's a difference. And if I refuse? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photos I'd taken Thursday morning. Jenna's car in Rick's driveway. Jenna leaving his house with messed up hair and missing lipstick. Then these photos get sent to everyone in your contact list. Your friends, your family, your clients. Everyone gets to see exactly what kind of person you really are. Jenna stared at the phone screen, her face crumpling. You wouldn't. Try me. She knew I wasn't bluffing. After 8 years of marriage, she knew I didn't make threats I wouldn't follow through on. I need time to find a place. You have until Sunday. That gives you 2 days. Mike, please. I made a mistake, but you made a choice. Every time you lied to me, every time you went to his house, every time you came home and pretended everything was normal, those were choices. Now you get to make another choice, leave quietly, or leave with everyone knowing why. Jenna went upstairs without another word. I heard her moving around, opening drawers and closet doors. Packing. I sat in my chair and finished reading the newspaper. The sports section had an article about the local high school football team making it to the state championship. Normal life, continuing on, despite the drama happening in my living room. My phone buzzed with another text from Linda. How did it go? Phase 2 complete, I typed back. Moving to Phase 3. What's Phase 3? I looked up at the ceiling, listening to Jenna's footsteps as she packed her life into suitcases. The friends, I wrote. Time to find out who knew. Because I was willing to bet that Jenna hadn't kept this secret entirely to herself. Women like her always had confidants. Friends who'd covered for her, lied for her, maybe even encouraged her. And those friends were about to learn that loyalty to a cheater comes with consequences. Saturday morning, I made a list of Jenna's closest friends. The women she had lunch with, went shopping with, called when she needed advice. The inner circle who would have known about Rick, or at least suspected. There were 5 names on the list. Amanda Price, Jenna's best friend since college, married to a lawyer, lived in the expensive part of town. Katie Sullivan, Jenna's workout partner, divorced, worked in marketing. Rebecca Torres, Jenna's book club friend, married with 2 kids, stayed home full-time. Michelle Chen, Jenna's former coworker, single, traveled frequently for business. Sarah Williams, Jenna's neighbor from our old apartment complex, married to a doctor. I started with Amanda because she was the most likely to know everything. She and Jenna talked almost daily and had the kind of friendship where secrets were shared like currency. I called her at 10 a.m. Mike, is everything okay? Jenna said you two were having some problems. Interesting. Jenna had already reached out to her support network. We're having more than problems, Amanda. We're getting divorced. Oh, Mike, I'm so sorry. I know things have been difficult lately. What do you know about the difficulties? There was a pause. Too long to be innocent. Just that you two have been growing apart. Different interests, different goals. It happens in marriages. Is that what Jenna told you? Mike, I don't think I should be in the middle of this. Whatever's happening between you and Jenna should stay between you and Jenna. Even when what's happening involves Rick Brennan? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. I think you've known about the affair for months. I think you've been helping her cover it up. Mike, Thursday night, Amanda, when the police showed up at Rick's house and found Jenna hiding in his backyard. Were you surprised when she called you crying? Or were you surprised she finally got caught? Silence. You knew, I said. You've known all along. It's not that simple. Actually, it is exactly that simple. My wife was cheating on me, and you helped her do it. You listened to her complain about our marriage while she was destroying it. You probably even gave her advice on how to sneak around better. She was unhappy, Mike, really unhappy. She felt trapped and ignored, and so instead of encouraging her to talk to me or go to counseling, you encouraged her to have an affair. I didn't encourage anything. I just listened when she needed someone to talk to. And when she needed someone to lie for her, when she needed an alibi or a cover story, did you just listen then too? Amanda was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was defensive. Marriage is complicated. You can't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own relationship. You're right. I can't understand that. But I can understand what it's like to be lied to by people I trusted, people I considered friends. Mike, I never lied to you. You never told me the truth either, and in this situation, silence was the same as lying. I hung up before she could respond. Katie Sullivan was next. I found her at the gym where she and Jenna worked out together 3 times a week. Mike? She looked surprised to see me. What are you doing here? Looking for answers. Katie glanced around the busy gym, clearly uncomfortable. About what? About how long you've known that Jenna was cheating on me. Her face flushed red. I don't know what you're talking about. Thursday night, Rick Brennan's house. Police cars. Ring any bells? I heard there was some kind of incident, but... Cut the crap, Katie. You knew. You all knew. She looked down at her gym bag, avoiding my eyes. It's not my place to get involved in other people's marriages. But it is your place to help destroy them? I never helped destroy anything. You helped her maintain the lie. Every time you covered for her, every time you provided an alibi, every time you listened to her complain about me while she was screwing another man, you were helping destroy my marriage. Katie's voice rose, drawing attention from other gym members. She was miserable, Mike. Absolutely miserable. You ignored her for years. So that justified the affair? It justified her trying to find happiness somewhere. With a married man? Destroying 2 marriages instead of 1? Katie's anger deflated suddenly. She looked tired, older than her 34 years. She said you 2 were basically roommates, that you hadn't been intimate in months, that you spent more time with your computers than with her. And you believed that justified everything? I believed she deserved to feel wanted by someone. I stared at her. Did it ever occur to you that maybe she should have talked to me about feeling unwanted, that maybe we could have worked on our problems together? She said she tried. When? When did she try? Katie couldn't answer because Jenna had never tried. She'd gone straight from feeling neglected to seeking attention elsewhere, and her friends had supported that choice. You want to know the truth, Katie? We hadn't been intimate because she was always too tired or too stressed or not in the mood. Now I know why. She was saving her energy for Rick. I left Katie standing in the middle of the gym, looking like she'd been slapped. Rebecca Torres was at the playground with her kids when I found her. She saw me coming and immediately looked guilty. Mike, hi. How are you holding up? You tell me. How should I be holding up? She glanced at her children, who were playing on the swings. Maybe we shouldn't talk about this here. Why not? Are you ashamed of what you've been part of? I haven't been part of anything. Really? So when Jenna needed someone to watch her kids during her Tuesday and Thursday sister visits, she never called you? Rebecca's face went pale. She doesn't have kids. Exactly. But she told you she was helping with Tara's kids, didn't she? Needed someone to relate to about handling children during a crisis? Yes. She mentioned that Tara was struggling with her custody situation. Tara doesn't have kids either, Rebecca. She's never been married. Rebecca sat down heavily on a bench. Oh, God. How many lies did you help her maintain? How many stories did you help her keep straight? I thought I was being a good friend. She said Tara was having a breakdown after her divorce, and she needed to help with the kids during the transition. And you never thought to ask questions? Never thought it was strange that these crises always happened at night? She said Tara worked during the day and could only deal with emotional stuff after the kids were in bed. I sat down next to Rebecca, feeling suddenly exhausted. She used all of you, told each of you a different version of the story, got you all invested in helping her maintain the lie. I'm so sorry, Mike. I had no idea. Yes, you did. Maybe not the details, but you knew something was wrong. You all knew. Rebecca started crying. She's my friend. I wanted to support her. By helping her destroy her marriage? By helping her through what I thought was a difficult time. The difficult time was her guilt over having an affair, and instead of encouraging her to end it, you all helped her manage it. I left Rebecca crying on the playground bench while her kids played, oblivious to the adult drama surrounding them. Michelle Chen and Sarah Williams gave me similar stories. Different details, but the same basic pattern. Jenna had told them she was unhappy, painted me as neglectful or boring or inattentive, and gradually involved them in maintaining her cover story. None of them had known about Rick specifically, but they'd all known something was happening, and they'd all chosen to help rather than confront. By Saturday evening, I'd burned every bridge in Jenna's social circle. Word would spread quickly through their network. Mike knew everything, and he wasn't staying quiet about who had helped cover it up. Jenna came downstairs with 2 suitcases and a box of personal items. I found a furnished apartment across town, she said. Month-to-month lease. Good. Your little revenge tour today was really classy, by the way. Amanda called me crying. So did Rebecca. They should be crying. They helped you lie to me for months. They were being good friends. Good friends don't help you cheat on your husband. Good friends tell you when you're making terrible choices. Jenna set down her suitcases. You've destroyed my entire social circle. You destroyed your social circle when you decided to involve them in your affair. I just made the consequences visible. They didn't know about Rick. They knew you were lying about something. They chose to help instead of asking questions. Jenna picked up her bags again. You're going to be alone, Mike. Completely alone. Was your revenge worth that? I thought about the question seriously. Was it worth it? The satisfaction of watching her enablers squirm when confronted with their complicity? Yes, I said. It was worth it. She walked toward the door, then stopped. What about us? Is there any chance? No. Mike, you made your choice, Jenna. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Now live with it. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and made one more phone call. Linda, it's Mike. How would you like to help me with Phase 4? What's Phase 4? I looked out the window at Rick's house, where lights were on, and his red Mustang sat in the driveway. Rick's turn. Sunday morning, I woke up to find Rick Brennan standing on my front porch. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Wrinkled clothes, unshaven face, bloodshot eyes. The confident real estate broker was gone, replaced by a desperate man who'd realized his world was falling apart. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. We need to talk, he said. Do we? This has gone far enough, Mike. You've made your point. Have I? What point is that? Rick ran his hand through his disheveled hair. Look, I know you're angry. You have every right to be angry. But destroying everyone's lives isn't going to fix anything. I'm not destroying anyone's life. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. The truth? Rick's voice rose. You want to talk about truth? Your wife was miserable, Mike. Absolutely miserable. She felt ignored and unappreciated and... Stop right there. I stepped closer to him. Don't you dare try to justify what you did by blaming me. I'm not blaming you. I'm explaining. You're making excuses. For yourself and for her. But here's the thing, Rick. Even if I was the worst husband in the world, that didn't give you the right to sleep with my wife. Rick's shoulders sagged. It just happened. We didn't plan it. Bullshit. Nothing happens twice a week for 3 months by accident. You planned it, you orchestrated it, and you enjoyed every minute of it. Okay, fine. Yes, we planned it. But it wasn't about hurting you. It was about connection, about feeling alive. I stared at him. Do you hear yourself? You sound like a teenager justifying shoplifting. This is different. No, it's not. You took something that didn't belong to you. The only difference is that what you stole was my marriage. Rick was quiet for a moment, staring at his feet. When he looked up, his expression had changed from desperate to calculating. What do you want? He asked. What do I want? To make this go away. To stop the neighborhood gossip and the drama. What's it going to take? I almost laughed. You think this is about money? Everything's about money, Mike. Name your price. You can't afford what this cost me. Try me. I make good money. I can write you a check right now. I looked at this man who'd been screwing my wife for 3 months, who'd smiled and waved at me from across the street while betraying me, who now thought he could buy his way out of the consequences. You really don't get it, do you? I said. Get what? This isn't about money. This is about respect, about honor, about the fact that you looked me in the eye and pretended to be my friend while you were stabbing me in the back. I never pretended to be your friend. Every time you waved at me from your driveway, every time you made small talk at neighborhood barbecues, every time you complimented my lawn or asked about my work, you were pretending. Rick's face hardened. Fine. You want to play the victim? Go ahead. But you're not innocent in this, Mike. You drove her away. How? By being boring, by taking her for granted, by treating her like a roommate instead of a wife. And your solution was to treat her like a whore? Rick stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. Don't call her that. What would you call a married woman who sneaks around with her neighbor twice a week? What would you call someone who lies to her husband's face and then goes to another man's bed? I'd call her someone who was looking for what she wasn't getting at home. And I'd call you someone who was happy to take advantage of that. We stood facing each other on my front porch, two men who'd once been neighbors, now enemies. The morning sun cast long shadows across the lawn, and I could see curtains twitching in windows up and down the street. The neighborhood was watching. This ends now, Rick said quietly. You're right. It does end now. But not the way you think. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It displayed a Facebook post I'd written but not yet published. The post included the photos I'd taken of Jenna's car in his driveway, along with a detailed timeline of the affair and a list of everyone who'd helped cover it up. One click, I said, and everyone we know sees exactly what kind of man you are. Rick's face went white. You wouldn't. What do you think? My business, my reputation, it would destroy everything. Should have thought of that before you decided to destroy my marriage. Mike, please. I'll do anything. I'll move. I'll leave town. Just don't post that. Mike didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He just pressed one button and let the truth do the screaming for him. Rick came over thinking he could bargain, maybe buy mercy with a last-minute grenade about Jenna's past. Instead, he handed Mike the final piece of clarity he needed. Rick wasn't the soulmate. He was just another interchangeable idiot in a parade of them. And Mike's response? Nothing. It changes absolutely nothing. That is ice-cold, surgical, beautiful detachment. Rick tried to make it about Jenna's pattern. Mike made it about Rick's irrelevance. One click, career gone, marriage gone, reputation gone, all because Rick forgot the oldest rule. Never confess to the man who no longer has anything to lose. Mike didn't need to raise a fist. He raised a phone, then he deleted the app, drank his coffee, and slept like a man who finally stopped carrying dead weight. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is the one that ends with you quietly closing the door while the other person realizes they're the one locked out forever. Rick came to beg. He left as a footnote. Mike didn't just burn the bridge, he erased the river.